I think there's a big decision coming down the road, unless it's already been made, about the coaching staff, the head coach of this football team, Kevin Stefanski. And I catch a lot of grief because I think Kevin can coach, and I say Kevin can coach. And then, people call me a moron, and what am I looking at? And I know nothing about football. And
that's when they're polite.
Blah, 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 blah. And all that said, I still think the guy can coach. That doesn't mean he's going to survive here.
Agreed.
But I wonder, it goes back, Tom, and I have to have your perspective on this. I think a big chunk of it, not all of it, because things can change. What were the marching orders given to this team at the beginning of the year? Because I think there had to be some, because he was handed a roster that it's like, hey, here you go. Good luck. And I wonder what you think about him, Kevin Stefanski, and where he stands in this whole situation moving forward.
Yeah, I think you made a great point there, Jeff. I think what this season is about is reflective in the roster that he has been handed. The fact that he's got 2 starting quarterbacks, both rookies. The fact that he's got, rookies at prominent positions on both sides of the ball. So, yeah, listen, could the writing be on the wall? Potentially, but I think it's in pencil right now. I don't think there's anything that has been decided over there. I'm going to go to my coach speak right now and say, we've got to let this play out. I mean, there's still some football to be played, right? Yeah. There's still going to be some peaks and valleys here over the next, is it 5 games we have left?
That is 5 games.
So I still think a lot can happen. I will take you back to this summer, and to me, there were almost some telltale signs, Jeff, in what Dee and Jimmy Haslam said this summer, which was an acknowledgement, once again, much like they did at the winter meetings or the owners' meetings, that the Deshaun Watson decision was a mistake, that they had dug themselves a big hole. They were going to have to figure a way to climb out of it. To me, that almost gives the coach and the general manager to some degree, I'm not going to say a free pass, and clearly there's been some bad football. There's been some bad decisions. There's been some good decisions. There was a really good draft. All that said, going into this year, to me, there were some other signs. The thing that I still can't get my head around, Jeff, and you and I talked about this, I remember a lot this summer, was this quarterback situation. And obviously, it's the one thing that remains the cloud that hangs over this franchise. They shifted so quickly from what I was told that they were going to do in August, which was essentially Kenny Pickett is our starter. Joe Flacco will be his backup. Dylan Gabriel will be the emergency quarterback. And this is going to be a redshirt year for Shedeur Sanders. Well, after 4 weeks of the season, that changed pretty dramatically. And actually, it changed before that when Kenny Pickett couldn't stay healthy in training camp, and then you ended up trading him for a 5th-round pick, right?
Which still makes no sense to me, but that's okay.
Yeah, it was just but my point is, Jeff, is that it was just such a shift. And so quickly, I mean, the haste with which they did that was surprising to me. And again, to me, another telltale sign as to maybe what this season was supposed to be about.
Do you think when Jimmy Haslam came out and said big swing and a miss at a quarterback, was that an admission?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was a long overdue admission, right? I think we all...
He didn't come right out and say, I insisted on getting Deshaun Watson, but I think it might be as close as an owner comes to that.
Yeah, because I don't think you can go there. Because I do think there was a collaborative effort to some degree, right? Obviously, he has final say-so,
as
right?
Paul DePodesta said.
Yeah.
When he was questioned in his Colorado thing, he's asked about Browns football.
Yeah, that was the Inquisition I wish we could have had here.
I know, but he did come in to say hello.
And by the same token, I wish we had a chance to speak with Andrew Berry during the bye week to ask the question that I just brought up about the shift in the quarterback.
Why did that happen?
Yeah. So again, to me, listen, I think that we're trending in the wrong direction if you're Kevin Stefanski, in my opinion, only because it just feels like there is a groundswell and a momentum on that side. But that's not to say that things can't change with a couple of wins. And oh, by the way,
and moving in the right direction.
And which also, by the way, is to see a young rookie quarterback who's made some strides. Hasn't been great by any means, but he hasn't hurt them either. And I've seen, with each snap, a growing confidence. We can talk a little bit, about what the game plan was this past Sunday. I think in some ways they may have saved him from himself. I don't think you want to have him behind the line as it is currently structured, in the shotgun, winging the ball around the stadium in that kind of wind. I mean, that's going to be a recipe for disaster. Right. So, I think I don't necessarily think that Kevin's future is tied into the next 5 weeks and Shedor's progress. No, I don't. But I do think if Shedeur continues to trend in the right direction, that is a positive for Kevin Stefanski.
I know how things work in pro sports. You know how things work. Browns fans know how things work. You don't survive losing seasons consecutively very often in the NFL because, things just change so quickly.
Right.
And I went back and, I knew it in my head. I wanted to see it on paper, and I wanted us to talk about it. And I went back to 99 and thought, okay, who has survived?
The great Chris Palmer years.
Yeah, who has survived 2 years in a row where they didn't do very well? And I must tell you, Tom, even though I lived it, watched it,
you forgot about it,
covered it, it's stunning how guys didn't survive 2 years. And this is where I think you might have an issue if you're Kevin, because history screams you don't survive this. And Andy and I have made that point numerous times. You don't survive 3 wins followed by 4 or 5 wins. That doesn't happen very often. Chris Palmer was here 2 years. He won 2 and 3 games. He was out, with an expansion team, right? So you thought, well, okay. And then you bring in Butch Davis. When Butch was here,
who was the hot college coach at the time?
He was absolutely the big hire. Yeah. He was here 3.5 years. That was it. And he did okay, but then
couldn't survive 4 and 12.
No, he won 5 games, and then the next year it was 4. And this was his last year, and he was 3-8 when he was let go.
Well, let's also remember.
So he won 5 and then 3-8, and they let him, and he was out.
Let's also remember too that there's part of that is on the Butch side of the equation,
yes,
which was he was having a bit of a meltdown, didn't seem to be very happy here. Maybe wanted to move on to other pastures. So that has to be factored in. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
But it was, and he was here. He was here longer than 2. But again, it was that second year where it wasn't going well that for whatever reason did him in. So you bring in Romeo Crennel. Romeo did a nice job here. They won 10 games in his 3rd year. Romeo was here 4 years.
After 6 wins and 4 wins.
And he won 10. The next year he wins 4 and he's out. There was no patience. Now, it wasn't the Haslam ownership, but he won 4 games after winning 10 and was done. You bring in Eric Mangini. 5 wins, 2 years in a row, he's out. There was no patience for Eric to try and grow things. You bring in and change in management.
Oh, by the way, may not have survived that first year if not for that 4-game winning streak to end the season.
To end the season. Yeah. And Mike Holmgren saying, well, he finished strong, and I thought it was fair to Eric to bring in. Remember all that?
I've got so many things going through my head right now, Jeff, that you bring these up. Yeah.
It was weird, but Eric was here 2 years, 5 wins each season. He's out.
Right.
Pat Shurmur comes in, 4 wins, 5 wins, he's out. Ownership change, however, during Shurmur's tenure is when that happened. And, this is where I started, doing the math with Kevin. It's like, wait a minute, 3 wins, and if you win 2 of these final 5 games, you go 2 and 3, that's only 5 wins. Well, Shurmur was out for 4 and 5. You bring in Chud, poor Rob Chudzinski. I'll forever think that. 1 year, 4 wins, done. He's out. You bring in Mike Pettin. You win 7 games. Pretty good, right? You're on your way, maybe. You win 3, you're out. So you see what we're talking about here, folks. Then you bring in Hugh. You showed some patience with Hugh.
He survives 1 and 15, only to go 0 and 16.
And then had it going for Hugh. He ends up going 2-5 and 1. And they canned him. You bring in Greg Williams, and Greg goes 5 and 3. Greg's got it going. You get rid of him. Oh my! I remember to this day. I said, "What if Greg Williams wins like 5 games when he got the job?"
And he did.
And he did.
Yeah.
And you got rid of him.
And then they hire Freddie Kitchens.
And Freddie goes 1 year, wins 6, and he's out after 1 year. Freddie wins 6, and then you bring in Kevin, who, if he wins 6 this year, won't we all be surprised? Because that means you're going to go 3-2 in the final 5 games.
I'll say this: they should have 5 wins already.
Well, they should, but they don't.
I know.
So where's the patience level? Does ownership have more patience than the fan base? Because, folks, you've been telling me for some time you don't think he should be the coach anymore. You know, I've caught grief from a lot of folks here who call up and send me nasty emails because I think Kevin Stefanski can coach. And
how dare you?
Even though I think that, Tom, I understand what the situation is in the NFL. The good coaches get canned all the time.
They do.
You know, I mean, like Andy Reid left Philadelphia.
They get hired to be fired.
Yeah, well, they do, and that's part of the gig. You're in the locker room. What do you hear about Kevin from the guys who actually wear the helmets and play?
I know he still has the respect and the ear of at least the guys that I talk to. I don't have a lot of strong relationships with a majority of this roster, unlike in previous years, because I haven't been around as much.
Right.
And also, it's a new group, right? There's a lot of young guys, you know?
There was a graphic on Monday Night Football last night where the Patriots with Mike Vrabel just looked phenomenal against the Giants. They've won 10 straight games.
Yeah.
But they were talking about the young Patriot team and said, and then they showed a graphic, most snaps played by rookies in the NFL this year. Number 1 team was the Browns.
Doesn't surprise me at all. I mean,
I thought it, because though we know they've been playing young guys, it hadn't dawned on me. They're playing more young guys more often than any other team in the NFL.
Right. So I think the young guys, because they are young guys, are going to pay attention to what the coach says, right, and try to do right by him. The veteran guys are a different story. The veteran guys that have been around for a while can tune guys out. They've kind of seen it, right? They've been through various camps, various systems, philosophies, what have you. The guys that I've talked to said that Kevin still has everybody's attention. I think if you want to look at Sunday and the situation with Jennings, right, and the Browns players kind of standing up for each other, that's a good sign of a team that at least is still willing to fight, right?
Yeah.
I
don't think this team has quit.
No, I don't think so.
Any game, any time. They play hard, and you can say that's for the coach, for themselves, for the city, whatever it is. I don't think this team has quit at all.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I alluded to that. It's not. It's not what I was going for. But and I agree with you, Jeff, wholeheartedly. So I think that he has the respect of the locker room still. I don't think anybody's tuned him out yet. I think there is, unfortunately, some narratives that have built up outside of Cleveland about Kevin's relationship with Shedeur Sanders, which I think has been unfair. I think there has been some shots taken at him that have been unfair. From the vibes that I get and the conversations that I've had with guys in the locker room is that this is still a united team that feels strong about what this year is about. Again, we can talk about that more, Jeff. What were the expectation? Was this just a developmental year? Was this a redshirt year for the Browns, if you will? In some ways, I kind of
was it supposed to be?
I kind of see it that way. Yeah. I really do. I wonder, and listen, and we talked about this, and I know Andy and I and Dan talked about this at one point. Unfortunately, I think for Browns fans, and obviously there's been a lot of down moments over the last 20 years, and I get it, and I appreciate the passion and how Browns fans continue to come back week in and week out, right? It seems like everybody is fine with understanding where things are at until the ball gets kicked off on the Sunday afternoon, and then everybody kind of loses their mind, right?
When it doesn't go well, people act like it's a normal football game and your team is expected to win, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It is. And I find people it's interesting, by the time we get to like Wednesday or Thursday, everybody's kind of finally calmed down from criticizing the 4th and 1 call on Sunday.
And then here we come again.
And then and then they're looking forward and they're just waiting for the next disaster to happen, right? So, yeah, it's just, unfortunately, things have kind of, in this season, and Jeff, and I love the way you pointed out the way, coaches have not survived this kind of a 6-25 situation or what have you. Now, there are a lot of variables at play, though, that make it a positive for Kevin Stefanski. The fact that he's had 2 11-win seasons, the fact that he's gotten this team to the playoffs twice. I think the argument...
Which, by the way, the 11 wins, most wins since the team has returned to the NFL.
I think the argument can be made. I think it's a no-brainer argument that he's been the best coach they've had since their return as an expansion franchise. I don't think it's close. I mean,
I agree with you, but we both know that might not mean anything.
No, it may not.
Yeah.
But we also have an ownership group that has that showed impatience for too long, and then maybe was too patient at times in other situations, right? And then has made a catastrophic mistake with the signing of a quarterback that continues to, like I said, a cloud that continues to hang over this franchise. So there are other variables there that I think are positives on the keep Kevin Stefanski agenda, if that's the right word.
Folks, would you want him back next year? Just flat out ask. If anybody wants to chime in, 216-474-0092. There are 5 games to go, Tom. You have Tennessee this week.
Okay.
You don't win a Tennessee home game. That's going to be a bad look.
Yeah. Now, weather comes into play. You know, there are other factors here that we have, but you're right. You need the home win here. You need, Shedeur to have a solid game, play well enough that he shows some more continued progress, run the ball, let Judkins do his thing. By the way, has that kid been unbelievable?
It's fun.
Oh,
I love his running style.
Oh, my goodness, right, Jeff? It's like every carry, and he's fighting for every millimeter that he gets, which is great to see. He's been great. And I tell you what, and I had heard this a few weeks ago when I've been covering the Browns on a semi-weekly basis here. Actually, I've been out there at least once a week working for Scott Petrak on Fridays for the Illyria Chronicle, the zone coverage that they do. And I had heard whispers a couple weeks ago about Dylan Sampson and how he had been coming on in practice. And then sure enough, he has a breakout game a week ago in Las Vegas.
Looked great.
And you see
the way he busted through on that little screen pass.
Wonderful.
It was like, well, look at that.
Look at that guy.
Haven't seen that in a while.
There's the guy we saw at Tennessee, right? Yeah.
Tom, we haven't seen that in a while.
No, so...
even when you had Nick and Kareem, you didn't see a guy split the seam like that, and nobody's going to catch him.
Haven't had that guy in a minute here, have they?
No.
Right? Not that kind of player,
no.
Right? So he's been encouraging as well. So I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought here. But just in general, I think there's been, some development by these young guys. You got to get a win over Tennessee. The schedule going forward looks favorable. I mean, Buffalo at home is going to be a handful, right?
That's a challenge.
So there's going to be some twists and turns. But I do think these last 5 games do matter because, as I said to you at the top of the show here, I'm not to the point where that I feel change is necessary, and nor inevitable.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this one though, and I wonder, we've all been impressed with this draft class.
A plus.
It's arguably the first draft class we've been impressed with
since 1967, right?
Well,
I know.
Well, since certainly for Andrew Berry, without question. It's the first one that you look at and say, "Yep, nailed it."
Yep.
Nailed it. You nailed it, but you did draft 2 defensive players on a team that's so lacking for offensive talent. It's ridiculous. But
you did take 2 quarterbacks.
You did take 2 quarterbacks. You did get
an offensive lineman. There are some flaws to it.
You found a really good big-time running back. You found another running back who looks like he could be a perfect complement. So I like it. If by chance this goes south, even further south in the final 5 games, do you think Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are a package deal? Or did one draft put Andrew Berry in a different light? I wonder Tom. Because overall...
That's a tricky question. There's a lot,
I went through his first 5 drafts.
Yeah.
And of the offensive players that he drafted, and at the time Cedric Tillman was out, of the offensive players drafted, none of them were playing for the Browns.
Wow.
In the first 5 drafts.
Wow.
And at that time, Cedric was out, and there was somebody else, too, and it was DeWand. It was DeWand Jones who was out. They weren't here. They weren't playing. Well, how do you miss 5 drafts taking offensive guys? That's terrible. But then when you turn around this year,
send him to Columbus.
well, yeah, you turn around this year and you nail a draft.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, does that, if in fact, let's work under the assumption that Kevin and Andrew were a package deal, does that separate them?
That's a great question. I
don't know the answer to
I
that.
don't either. They're aligned in so many ways, Jeff. And by the way, I think I hear a little pain in your voice when you say Cedric Tillman.
I really like Cedric.
I know you do. I've been high on him as well, and I'm just waiting for it to happen, and it hasn't for whatever reason, right?
Not since Joe Flacco was
No, I know. And there's
ball.
weeks where I feel like,
Is it him? Are they trying to throw it to him? I don't know the answer to that.
Yes, and yes, right? I mean, there's so many variables on this plays. That's why, when we talk about this offense being such a mess, and actually I heard John Greco this morning on the morning show to talk about, it's you can never just say that it's one thing, right? There's always a breakdown in blocking, a receiver's not running the right route, the quarterback misses him by a hair, whatever, and that just leads to the situation we're in. So, but in terms of the Berry and Stefanski package, I do think they do separate themselves in different ways. I don't think necessarily ownership views them as a package.
You don't?
No, I don't. I think they're separate entities because I think it's the roster is the roster, and the production on the field is or lack thereof is what's going on the field, and that's on the coaching staff, and the roster is on the GM and the personnel group.
It's funny to me because on the offensive side of the ball, I don't like the overall roster, but boy, you nailed it this time around.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, I think you'd be very hard pressed to make a move with Andrew Berry based on the success of one draft. Honestly, I think this draft has been so solid that I don't know how you would walk away from him at this point.
Great point, Jeff, because of what this draft has built in terms of where you go forward with it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
because now you have a couple of pieces.
Yeah,
you do.